Hello ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video, I have a brand new ranking for you all, as I am going to be ranking every third movie in the MCU. So it's no secret that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has officially landed in our theaters, which not only marks the end of another MCU trilogy, but another third movie in quite a long line of them. The MCU's been going for well over a decade now, and they've hit that third movie mark quite a few times. So I figured why not take the opportunity to rank them all today. Before I hop into the actual ranking itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my ranking videos. There is already well over 100 videos currently on that playlist, so if rankings are your thing, then be sure to check that out, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Number 7. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It's actually kind of funny because I feel I actually like Quantumania more than most people do. And it's actually my favorite of the three Ant-Man movies, whereas most people have just been blasting this one as a lifeless, soulless CGI monstrosity. But I really didn't feel that way. I actually think this movie is pretty fun. The best way I can describe it is that it's the MCU doing its best Star Wars impression. Sure, the story is nothing special, and the laughs are a little more hit or miss, and of course the CGI is not great, but I still feel like the movie has a lot to enjoy. For every bit of comedy that misses, there's more comedy that hits. It's got some fun action sequences. Jonathan Majors, even though I do fully understand and recognize that the actor is in some hot water right now, as a character in this movie and this movie's primary villain, I thought that he was a solid villain and definitely better than the previous two Ant-Man villains. The movie is far from perfect, and it's definitely still a mid to low tier MCU flick. I just feel like it's getting far more hate than it deserves, despite being in last place on this list. Number 6. Iron Man 3. Yet another one of these situations where I feel like I like the movie a lot more than most people do, because truth be told, Iron Man 3 almost cracks my top 10 in the entire MCU. I never understood why everyone hated the Mandarin twist so much. It's essentially been retconned at this point anyway, now that we've seen the true Mandarin, but I actually thought it was pretty decent. I liked how the Mandarin just ended up being a puppet, and the true puppet master was a villain linked to Iron Man's past, and then you had the whole Extremis experiments. I thought that the big final fight with all of the Extremis soldiers and the many Iron Man suits was just purely awesome. It's got many standout sequences too, like the airplane sequence. It definitely gives me those Christmas vibes, even though it's only lightly mentioned and scattered throughout the movie. I always like to refer to it as a Christmas movie, and I watch it around Christmas every single year. But arguably the best thing that this movie does, aside from its well executed and perfectly timed comedy from director and writer Shane Black, is the handling of Tony's PTSD, as this was the first movie set after the events of the first Avengers. So in my opinion, there is really nothing to hate and just a whole lot to love when it comes to Iron Man 3. Number 5. Thor Ragnarok. Now this is actually kind of crazy to me, because if you have checked out my full ranking, you will know that Thor Ragnarok is in my top 10 of the MCU, yet still ends up at number 5 on this list, which is just straight up a testament to how good the MCU has been at closing out some of these arcs and stories and delivering magnificent third films. I love Thor Ragnarok. It took Taika Waititi's trademark style with like offbeat humor and it's colorful and it's zany and it's loud and over the top and in your face, but it blended it with some truly breathtaking visuals. One of the best MCU villains, probably a top 3 to 5 for Cate Blanchett's Hela, some extremely fun and memorable action sequences, and a lot of stakes, drama, and some good deep-rooted emotion. Plus, this was also kind of a double turn for Thor, because this is where he became more badass, like what we got in Infinity War, but he also became a bit dumber, for lack of a better term. But personally, I feel it was to the betterment of the character. I think that Waititi handled everything magnificently, whether you look at the relationship between Thor and Loki, the introduction to Valkyrie, everything to do with Bruce Banner / Hulk, Hela as a villain, and how it's actually their sister, and their ties and everything with their father, and just really everything. I thought the comedy worked, I thought the action was great, and I thought it progressed Thor's story, Loki's story, and really just the MCU MCU timeline and world as a whole very, very well. So again, that's why this is such a shocker to me to have to put it in the 5th place spot, but when looking at the other movies, I just felt there was no other choice. Number 4, Spider-Man: No Way Home. This one was very tricky. I will say when I started working out how this ranking was going to go, number 1 and number 2 were very clearly set, and number 7 and number 6 were set. I think probably 5 too, but 4 and 3 in particular I bounced back and forth on, and I continue to do so in my ranking of the entire MCU. And that's because I flat out love No Way Home. This delivered everything I could have possibly hoped for in our first big multiverse movie. They brought back Toby and Andrew. That shit put me into tears. I was blown away. Yes, I saw it coming because there was leaks months, if not years, before the movie even released, but it didn't change the fact that this was one of the top 3 most memorable theater-going experiences of my entire life. I was there opening night with a massive crowd and everyone was losing their minds, and the feeling was simply euphoric. But I do have a few small gripes with this movie, like how they just so blatantly wasted characters like Sandman and the Lizard, and I find that sometimes the visuals could have been a little hit or miss. I miss the days of the Raimi trilogy when it was just so many practical effects, even a lot of practical effects also in the Garfield Webb movies. And sometimes there's a bit too much in the final battle going on that it kind of is hard to focus on. There's a little too much going on at once that you're missing cool, exciting things that are off on other sides of the screen. But really, those are just kind of nitpicks because this movie is truly, like Spider-Man himself, spectacular. It's got fun action, perfectly timed comedy, very, very memorable sequences, in particular, anything to do with the 3 Spider-Men. It's got Tom Holland's best performance, arguably of his career at this point. The return of Willem Dafoe not only made him one of the best MCU and Spider-Man villains, but one of the best comic book movie villains of all time in general. I loved seeing Alfred Molina back again. The ending was just gut-wrenching and truly heartbreaking. The only reason that I switched this one to the 4th place spot is because so much of this movie is fan service. Now, as a fan who looks to be serviced, I loved that, but I wondered to myself, if you took out Toby and Andrew, would I love this movie as much as I do? And that's a hard question to answer, but in the end, does it really matter? Not really, because the movie just is what it is. And that is why I have such a soft spot for it, and I will truly never forget seeing that movie opening night. Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And this is why it became so difficult, because Guardians 3 just came out, so I don't know if it's recency bias, maybe it'll drop down over time, but as of right now, I am still riding a massive high, because this has to be probably my favorite MCU movie since Endgame, potentially including No Way Home. Those two are neck and neck. I go back and forth on which one I like more, but this movie to me was a straight 10 out of 10. It not only delivered every single thing that I was hoping for, but it exceeded my every single expectation. It delivers on the emotion and the drama. This movie turned me into a blubbering mess at points. I was just straight up bawling my eyes out at a lot of Rocket's backstory stuff. It delivers on the spectacle, these big, grand, awesome action sequences and huge set pieces. It is stunning visually. It's got some of the best performances across the entire current 32 MCU movie slate. Delivers on the soundtrack once again, as James Gunn always does. One of the best MCU villains to date with Chukwudi Iwaji's High Evolutionary. I mean, this guy is a cruel, mean bastard. And it just has a little bit of everything in it, and I really do mean it. It's got the drama, it's got the comedy, it's got the action, and it brings all of these stories in these beautiful character arcs to such a satisfying close. I don't think it could have been done any better. If this is the last we see of all of the Guardians, I'm fine with that, where every single main character of these 3 movies ends up at the end of this movie couldn't have been more perfect. Number 2, Avengers Infinity War. When it comes to third movies, it doesn't get much bigger than this. They really did play this one up in the trailers and stuff, like this is what we'd all been leading to, but that isn't really the case, and that's not a bad thing because this ends up being sort of a stage setter for Endgame, but there are many people out there who actually prefer this to Endgame. Now, I'm not one of them personally, I am more of an Endgame guy, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this is still like my second or third favorite MCU movie. It is truly marvelous. Really phenomenal, and again, one of those top theater-going experiences of my lifetime. The silence when the snap happened was deafening. You could hear a dust bunny hit the floor. It was insane, and that has to be one of the most jaw-dropping and unforgettable movie endings in movie history. And sure, people are saying superhero fatigue now, blah, 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 but back when this shit dropped in 2018, people's minds were simply blown, and then we had to wait, and the speculation and theories and build up to Endgame was some of the most fun I've ever had on social media in my life. Discussions with friends on podcasts, watching theory videos and all these other things. It was just unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. You truly just had to be there, and I hope if you're watching this video, you got to be a part of that because it was so awesome. As for the movie itself, I loved it. I loved the groups that the characters were set up into. This was essentially a Thanos movie, and it worked to the movie's advantage because Josh Brolin's performance as Thanos was truly superb. And this movie was firing on all cylinders, attacking on all fronts, and it delivered everything that I could have possibly hoped for. Number 1, Captain America: Civil War. Now this one might be a bit controversial. Again, a lot of people, myself included, are riding that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 high. A lot of people think that No Way Home is the best movie to come out of the MCU. And many people have Infinity War as their favorite movie of the MCU. But until Endgame came out, Civil War was my favorite MCU movie, and it still remains very comfortably in that runner-up spot. And that's because this movie gave me something that I'd never seen in a comic book movie, really any big franchise movie, and still it has yet to be repeated, and that is that it put us into the perspective of the civilians. We get so caught up in the spectacle and rooting for our heroes to save the day, but we forget that these aliens attacking and robots and stuff are destroying entire cities and killing hundreds, if not thousands or more people, and all of that always gets glossed over in every major franchise movie, but not here. It brought it down to a human level while still maintaining that trademark MCU feel, having the big fight scenes like the airport sequence, which is just so insanely memorable. That shit is etched into my brain forever, and I loved it. It was our introduction to Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P. King, as the Black Panther. It was our introduction to Tom Holland as Spider-Man. This movie went big while still managing to keep everything so personal, because at the end of the day, a lot of people like to say that it's essentially just an Avengers movie, but I'd argue that it's still Cap and Bucky's relationship that's at the heart and the center of this movie, as well as the conflict between Tony and Cap. And that's what I love about this movie so much, is that it balances everything flawlessly in my mind, between the big, fun, epic MCU feel and the action and the comedy with the drama, having high stakes with a personal touch and a very grounded feel. We get to finally see our heroes be held accountable for everything that goes on around them, even if they're saving the day. The truth of the matter is you can't save everyone, and that just gets emphasized so beautifully here. So for all of those reasons and many others I probably completely forgot to touch on, that is exactly why this is my favorite of the MCU's third movies. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. While you're at it, don't forget to let me know how you would have ranked every single one of the MCU's third movies. If you're a movie lover whatsoever, then my channel is the place to be for you. Be it rankings like this one, top 10s versus videos, tier videos, I have it all, with so much more on the way to the channel, and we are closing in on 800 videos currently on the channel for you to enjoy. So if you liked this particular video, then be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if any of that sounds like it's right for you and you want to see more from me, then smash that subscribe button right now. While you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.